And welcome to the Weekday Warriors of Wrestling for March 18th, 2021. I'm Eric Clancy, joined by Patrick Kelly. We got a bunch of stuff today, but I'm going to start off. We are in Wrestlemania season. We are talking about the Showcase of the Immortals. We are talking about the first show in the United States that will have fans to a large degree in it. We're talking about Wrestlemania. And Patrick, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Universal title match. I believe it's the Universal, right? Not the WWE. Is going to be Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. And with Bobby Lashley's win about a month or so ago, or like a few weeks ago, I guess, the question's got to be asked: is this the worst WWE? Is this? No, I'm not just Universal, but is this the worst World Championship match being built up for a WrestleMania? I'm not talking about quality of match. I'm talking about just lack of star power, lack of like major interest. What say you?
Well, quick correction. They actually are going for the WWE Championship. Roman is the Universal title.
Shit. I forgot the blue one is the Universal now. Yeah. Wait.
Totally not confusing.
God, okay. That's very embarrassing. So, the Universal title, with its storied history back to the year of 2001-6, will be contested. What do you think about this thing?
Yeah, it's pretty high up there as far as, or I guess I should say pretty low down there as far as intrigue for WrestleMania main events. I mean, this was literally, if I'm not mistaken, this was a TNA World title match like 5-6 years ago. After they pretty much failed on Spike TV and the good days were pretty much over. This was like the main event that Impact Wrestling or TNA was desperate to scrape together because they had to throw something out there for the world title, and this was the best they could do. And now that is a match that is headlining, I guess, or at least sub-headlining a WrestleMania. And look, I don't want to bash Drew and Bobby too much. There's the two guys that I remember we were doing the show back when Bobby Lashley first showed up on Smackdown. It was like,
Yep.
Oh, this guy's got some potential. Let's see what he can do. And I think he's a great physical specimen. I think he's jacked to the gills and looks impressive, looks credible. But then that all goes out the window when you hear him talk. And he's a guy that would really benefit from, hopefully MVP is doing most of the talking for him. But I feel Lashley's one of those guys that got a lot of runs, a lot of chances, never really became a major success, and now he just kind of stumbled his way into a WrestleMania main event somehow. And Drew is a guy that, unfortunately, has been probably the most negatively impacted by the COVID era, where we never really got to test him as any kind of a champion for the WWE audience, because there really is no WWE audience to speak of. He's not feeding off any reactions. We don't know if they hate him, love him, or what. We don't know. It's just kind of the nature of the beast right now. So we're going into WrestleMania with this match, and to me, it seems remarkably uninteresting.
Yeah, no. 2016, I think, Bound for Glory is the Galloway Lashley match, and I'm gonna echo what you said. The fact is, it's not Lashley's fault, and it's not McIntyre's fault, because there's nothing inherently wrong with them as talents. I applaud them for making a move with Drew, because for the most part, this is the first real run, a real opportunity of a run that Drew has gotten in WWE. Lashley's had a few. He had his shot in 2007. He got one a few years ago, didn't really do anything, move the needle or anything. And to me, it's like nobody else is around. And I know there's going to be somebody who says, well, hey, aren't you guys always saying that they need to make new stars? And yes, I think they do. And I don't know if 44-year-old Bobby Lashley, who debuted in 2005, 16 years ago, is the new star we're talking about. You know, like when I think new stars, I'm like Matt Riddle, maybe, Ricochet. I don't know, somebody newer and fresher. Now, I'm not saying you can't utilize these guys. Obviously, there's value to to older names, but like it just, to me, it has so little interest from my perspective. And I know I asked the question at the beginning, but I don't know if it's the worst built up. Coming to mind, I mean, the ones that jump out to me, Patrick, are
The one that immediately jumped out to me is the one that we were there for. That was Alberto and Jack Swagger. But that one, had a better build-up, I feel like.
Yeah. So there's a yeah. I mean, to a point, it did. I mean, there's. It's interesting because you're in this 2 world title era, which people like forget. Like, one of these is basically the Intercontinental title. I know there's 2 shows and stuff, but like, it's different in this era because I mean, the Sheamus, Daniel Bryan. I mean, I guess it happens a lot in the 2 brand era, but like, that's a great one. Jack Swagger and Alberto is not a great one. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of the last like 4 years, the ones that they've had, because since then they've had. I mean, you had Braun and Goldberg, but that's not fair because it's like that was the COVID situation, so you can't really do anything there. What the hell else were there recently? I'm like blanking on.
Yeah, there was Bray and Orton, but even that one, and that one was
no,
terrible.
that had a build up for like 6 months.
And I would say star power wise, both of those guys are bigger than McIntyre.
Oh yeah, right. Absolutely,
or Lashley for sure.
I mean, that match blew. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't put that in even anywhere remotely in the conversation of like worse, like on paper or build,
Mm-hmm.
Here I'm going through because the when they get the 2 world titles, it gets kind of it gets kind of like back and forth. AJ and Shinsuke had so much hype because they thought they were going to have a New Japan match, so it can't be that. It can't be any of the Brock Roman matches.
No.
Which one was this? This was it's not Seth and Brock. That was a big one. I mean, it's like up there. Like it really is up there. I don't feel confident saying it is, but like it's up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing about Roman being the closing match, that gives him the 5th closing match, which I'm going to say puts him up there with Hogan, and he has 4 in a row, which I don't think anyone has, right? Nobody has 4.
I don't think so. Off the top of my head, no. I think you're right.
Because Hogan doesn't, because he has that WrestleMania.
He has 5, 6. He has 5, 6, 7, 8, and he stole 9. So 4 in a row, 5 if you want to fudge it.
Yeah, I guess you could say 4. Yeah. So he's tied Hulk Hogan. In the worst case scenario, he's tied Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had 4 advertised in a row. So he'll have 5 now, which I think is like, I think that's up there with like Hulk, Triple H, Cena, maybe Michaels.
Does Michaels have that many?
Michaels has 12,
14,
20, 23, and the 2010 one. What was it?
26. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so Michaels has 5.
Okay.
Austin has 3. Rock has, I think, 5. Rock has 5, yeah. Because he has the 2 Cena ones.
Yep.
But yeah, so Roman's Roman is up there, and this is probably the time he actually deserves to be there.
Well, he's the best thing on the show right now. Might as well give it to him.
Yeah, I mean, he should. Like, we shit on Roman for years for being, not the guy, and now he's finally performing in his role, and like shockingly because they turned him heel. Who would have seen that coming?
Oh my God.
He should get the title match.
There's another match that might close that we haven't discussed, and that's also involves a Royal Rumble winner, Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair for the SmackDown Women's title. You think they'd consider giving that the closing spot?
No, I do not. I do not.
Okay.
I think that match is going to be really good, actually. I like both of them a lot. I mean, I've always liked Sasha as a complete package. Her mic work is the lone issue for her. I mean, that Bayley match at Brooklyn was one of the best matches I've ever seen live in my entire life. I would put it up there with Okada Jay White at MSG as one of my absolute favorite matches I've seen live. But no, I do not think they would put them there. I think the only two options are Roman and Edge, because it's Roman and because they're giving Edge kind of this like momentous comeback, or Drew wins and he gets his big match in front of people, because that was the kind of the unfortunate thing last year. I mean, there was a lot of unfortunate things last year in the world, but Drew not having that moment of beating Brock in front of 70,000 people was like it was it took a lot away from him. So maybe they try to do it again. I think that it's funny we're talking about this match being like so anticlimactic, but a good thing that would come out of it would be Drew getting a moment that he kind of should have had last year.
Yeah, which is probably what the thinking is, which is probably why he's not the champion right now. They want to they knew that Florida being what it is right now, that they knew that they were probably going to have a chance to actually put on WrestleMania in front of people this year. And they wanted to kind of do a take two with Drew and give him his moment finally.
Which I think is great. I think it's great they're doing a WrestleMania with fans. I think as long as they're like cautious with the COVID protocols and they're checking and they're taking temperatures and everything, I think that's great. My contention is that it's good. It'll be. I don't even care about this WrestleMania, but I want to see it simply because there is fans in attendance, and that's something we really haven't had. I mean, the Tokyo Dome was I think 10,000 people each night or something like that. 12,000 people, something along those lines. And that was like, wow, what a breath of fresh air. It wasn't a normal Tokyo Dome show, but it was still refreshing to see. Now that said, and this is what we're talking about with Drew and Bobby, it's like, and this is par for the course for WWE in post 1999 or whatever. They haven't built this feud up. It's not a long-term story, to the degree that you would have seen with Diesel and Shawn and Austin and Rock and I don't know, Triple H and Jericho. As bad as that match was, as bad as the buildup was, that was a set plan for a long time. It's just almost come out of nowhere. And there was a point where we thought it was going to be like a Randy Orton Drew McIntyre, which would have made sense, but they just had those endless matches over the summer. And I mean, how invested can you be in this kind of 1 month feud?
Yeah, and that's a problem that the WWE's been running into, like you said, pretty much since 1999. It seems that way. I actually was just listening to Jim Ross's podcast where they were talking about WrestleMania 17. And the reason that Undertaker and Triple H got put together is because Vince looked at the plan for WrestleMania that year and approved it. And JR had to remind him, it's like, boss, we don't have Taker and Triple H on the card at all. And Vince was like, oh, shit, well, we got to change that, don't we? We got to fix that. That's a problem. So by happenstance, we got a really good match out of it, but it happened completely by accident because for whatever reason, they didn't have plans for two of their top stars.
Well, it's funny that he didn't mention this because I feel like this would make headlines if he did. The original plan for WrestleMania 17 was Shawn Michaels and Triple H.
Hmm.
Uh, it was they were gonna have a match. I think Undertaker was gonna do something with like Roy Jones. He was gonna do something with some boxer. I think was the idea. That was
Ah,
their initial plan. And for those of you who don't know, I think we've said this many times at the show. Shawn could have wrestled from 1999 onward. The idea that Shawn was out with a back injury for 4 years is not correct. Shawn was pissed that he wasn't the focal point of the company anymore. He was on a lot of fucking drugs. Um, he uh, he was sitting at home collecting his paycheck. His contract ran out, I think, in January 2001 because he signed it in '96, and I think he signed a 5-year contract. Yeah, so he signed it right before the '96 Royal Rumble, which is another story. But that's how all the stuff with Brett happened because he signed it before all the big money deals got down. Um, and it expired in January '01. So magically, and I say this as a Shawn Michaels fan, a giant Shawn Michaels fan, magically in January 2001, he's like, oh, you know what? I can work WrestleMania. Let's do a match with Triple H. So of course everybody's interested in that. And Shawn, they see is in real no condition to perform. He's pilled out of his mind. That was the thing that ended up with him getting fired by WWE because he passed out on like painkillers or something or somas. I don't know what it was in Vince's
he was at
office.
the. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he at the Raw
Yes.
Nitro simulcast, and that was when they realized he can't. No, we can't put him out there.
Yes. So the initial plan at that point, so by that point they had already gone to Triple H and Undertaker, but they were going to introduce him on that Raw as the special referee. And
Oh, okay.
and obviously that didn't happen for obvious reasons, but so they went with Undertaker and Triple H because the Undertaker boxing thing I think fell through for whatever reason, and the Triple H Shawn thing fell through. So that's why they put them together with I think like a month's worth of build. So
Okay.
yeah, a little fun fact for you. Um, what the hell were we talking about?
You're talking about WrestleMania 30. Oh my God, I just realized WrestleMania 17 is going to be 20 years old this year. That's amazing. That's insane to me.
That is because
Jeez.
this is 37, right? Yeah.
Yep,
Wow.
yep, 20
Wow.
years.
Jeez.
WCW's been dead for 20 years. That's depressing.
I know. I know. Um, so we'll do, why don't, Patrick, we'll do a WrestleMania rewind at the end of this, but let's talk Dynamite right now. Let's talk. I want to talk about the show because I
Mhm.
really like the show, but I want to talk about something I didn't like, which was Dynamite's numbers. Uh,
Okay.
the numbers for Dynamite and NXT came out today, and they kind of they reinforce what you and I have been saying, and that is how damaging Revolution was as a show. Um,
Mhm.
Dynamite did a 0.28, which, by the way, last week's number was the first time Dynamite has ever declined, ever in the history of the company. I know it's only 2 years old, but um, it was the first time a Dynamite after a pay-per-view declined in both viewers and the key demo. It has never happened before. Like every time there's been an improvement in both the demo and the viewers. Every
Mhm.
single post pay-per-view, this was the first time they didn't. Um, I know last week people were like, "Oh, South Park. South Park had a huge show." Yes, South Park had a huge show, um, but like it doesn't account for like I mean it was a 0.33 and they got a 0.32. You couldn't go up by even a 0.35 from the week before. This is it was a disappointing number. On top of that, this week we got a 0.28. That's the lowest since January 6th, which I can't like. I think that wasn't the Brody show. Yeah, no, it wasn't the Brody show. It was the show after. So it was like the New Year's Smash one, which I think
Mhm.
so. Oh, that was the insurrection date.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like, I mean, if you throw that out, this is the lowest demo number since November 25th. which was the day before Thanksgiving, which is always a bad day. You throw out that, this is the worst demo number since July 8th. So this is a bad demo number for AEW. Yes, they were still number 6. They're still fine. But if you don't think that the ending to Revolution or the underwhelming Christian Cage signing has an effect, you need to look at these numbers. And, I've heard people say, oh, well, it's a long-term thing. It's where the trends are going. And yes, I don't think this is going to sink AEW. I don't think this is going to kill the company. I mean, WWE has done way worse things, and somehow they keep standing. But AEW doesn't have 50 years worth of brand loyalty. And the fact is, you don't want to make too many of these mistakes. And the first thing is acknowledging that these were mistakes. Like, we all get that the explosion, that's a shit out of luck thing. There's not much you can do about that. But the Christian Cage thing, you got to learn from this shit, because if you think that I'm hearing people say, oh, it was St. Patrick's Day, people were out drinking. They were out drinking to the tune of that kind of decrease, like a 20% decrease. Like, I don't think so.
I drank at home and watched Dynamite. So
yeah, I'm sure people were out, but most of the bar crawls happened over the weekend. Like, I don't think that's valid. Excuse me. And this, we even had a great show ending angle last week where MJF forms his new group and takes out the Inner Circle. So there should have been not that much reason, but like, if you are turning people off on a pay-per-view, and the fact remains, Revolution was the most ordered AEW pay-per-view ever, and the viewership after it was the lowest increase they've ever had after a pay-per-view. That the fact remains that those are facts. So what happened was, a lot of people saw a pay-per-view, and a lot of people weren't super happy with that pay-per-view, which fucking sucks, because AEW has amazing pay-per-views, and there's been like 2 bad ones ever, and I mean, hell, I don't even think Revolution is not even a bad show. It just had a shitty ending and a shitty big payoff for something they were advertising. But the fact is, like, you got to keep people invested. Like, yes, do you want to look at the long-term trends? Yes, but what do you want to do? You want to get people to watch. Do you get them by disappointing them? No. So this has been a bad few weeks. I hope they can bounce back. I think this show was great. I thought it had a great main event. We'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I hope they make some headway, but like, to think that Revolution wasn't a huge damaging step in this company's history is naive. It was a bad night for AEW. Bottom line, and we're seeing it in the numbers right now, and those are not numbers I want to see. I want to see AEW back hitting 0.4s and 0.45s like they did in December for Winter is Coming. They're capable of doing that. They're capable of maintaining their audience. There's no reason for them not to.
The fact that they couldn't see that they were setting themselves up for disappointment there is kind of alarming.
Yeah. So, like, for some people don't seem to get it, because they keep saying, I don't get what the problem was. Christian's a Hall of Fame guy. He's a big name. He's a former world champion. He's everything that they promised. So I'm going to say this. What if you were at an event? I don't know. It's just any random event. And Michael Jordan comes out as a surprise guest. And Michael Jordan says, hey, everybody. Hey, how you doing? And they're like, oh, my God, it's Michael Jordan. It's Michael Jordan. Look at Michael Jordan. And then he's like, guys, this is a great evening. He's like, but we've got a surprise at the end of the night, and you're not going to believe who it is. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's great, yada, 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 yada. And then at the end of the night, out comes Isaiah Thomas. And you're like, well, and everybody's like, oh. And you're like, well, you were being unrealistic. because Isaiah Thomas is a Hall of Fame player. Well, yeah, but Michael Jordan introduced him. And yeah, I get Big Show isn't Michael Jordan. I get it. But do you see? Do you get it? Do you understand how you could make a big signing and bring him out? And then when he hypes somebody up, you think it's someone bigger? Do you see how that could possibly happen? I mean, like, whether I felt this way or not, the audience feels this way, because I know there were people that were super happy with it, and that's fine. You can, like, I like Christian, he's fine, you know, but the fact is people were let down. And as an owner, as a booker, you need to be aware of these things. You need to be aware of how your audience feels so you can anticipate and you can react and you can manage expectations. Anyone in any sort of business will tell you that. So the fact that this happened was, like, I don't know, it's just not what I expect from Tony Khan. But yeah, enough of the doom and gloom. Let's talk about Dynamite. Patrick, what did you think of the show overall?
Well, I was doing my St. Patrick's Day celebrations during the show, which involved a couple of black and tan. So I was making rather merry while the show was in progress. And fortunately, the show I was watching was quite entertaining, so I was having a doubly good time. I really enjoyed the show, and there were a couple of big angles, big moments, and that main event just knocked my socks off.
So let's start off there, because I thought the main event was great. I could nitpick, and I could come out here and say, oh, a lot of those were some big spots. One of them should have been the finish, and like a freaking power bomb on the thumbtack should probably be a finish. But you know what? The actual finish was a bigger spot than anything else they did, so I'm not going to complain about that. I thought it was great. I thought seeing both of those girls, like, bloody, I thought added to the drama. I thought it was a great payoff to a long feud. There were some hiccups here and there, but nothing majorly to complain about. I thought it was great. I thought I will be honest. What does Britt Baker have to do to win a big time match? And secondly, but no, I thought it was great. I was thoroughly engaged. It reminded me of the parking lot brawl match between the Best Friends and Proud and Powerful. I thought it was just a great showing for them. For people that wanted the women to get a shot, I mean, they knocked it out of the park. What can you say?
And I said it a couple weeks ago. They need to get that belt off Sheeta and put it on one of those two. And if last night didn't prove it, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, well, I like Sheeta, but she's kind of done everything there is to do. But I do like the fact that there are multiple stories going on in this division. It's sure. Like you and I talk about this all the time. If you have a division and the only feud is the title holder and someone else, you don't have a division. You just have a champion. This was a feud that was given a main event spot. It wasn't for the title. It was for a personal issue. And that makes everybody look better. And, I mean, I agree with you. Sheeta should probably drop the belt to somebody other than Nyla Rose. But this was great, and it did the AEW's women's division has come a very, very long way from where it started.
And Britt's been their biggest, as far as people they've homegrown, she's been their biggest get, I guess you would say, out of all of them. Like Thunder Rosa, she had established a name for himself in Lucha Underground and NWA and various other places. But Britt was somebody that came in brand new, little green, kind of a white meat baby. Yeah. And, white meat baby face, kind of finding herself. And she's grown into becoming, quite honestly, like the women's version of 98 Chris Jericho.
Yeah. No, so that was great. And there were some other great things on the show. I want to get to something I did not think was great. And Patrick, let me hear if you disagree. We had a match between Cody and Penta El Cerro Miedo, which I was very excited for because, I like Cody a lot. I like Penta. And the story here was that Penta wanted to break Cody's arm. And Cody has an injured shoulder. To me, it sounds like the perfect way to write Cody off, get Penta a little bit of heat, and maybe tell another story down the road. You and I have talked about it many, many times. The way Penta was presented in Lucha Underground and the way Penta is presented in AEW is very different. And one of those key things is that arm breaker, which used to be certain death, and people would sell it for like 5 weeks. And Penta does it to Cody, and then Cody immediately, selling almost no damage, rolls him up, pins him, and then Penta attacks him anyway. And in one of the weakest post-match brawls I've ever seen, where he's basically slapping Cody's shoulder, he apparently he lost the battle, but he may have won the war, said Excalibur. I thought, if you're going to put Cody out, just have Penta break his arm, get that move over, have him beat him, and then that's it. But, I mean, I guess they had to do this sweet-ass QT Marshall feud or something. But I thought this was a waste. I was not a fan of any of this.
Yeah, and again, it's a simple fix. It's one of those situations where I wish I was an editor and somebody would just hand me the format and I could just take a red pen through. It's like, all right, just scratch this. Almost like a Willy Wonka thing. Scratch this, reverse it. It's like, okay, Cody beats him with a flash pin. Then he does the arm breaker spot after the match, and boom, there you go. And that's it. And that would have fixed everything.
Yeah, that could, yes, yeah, that too, yeah. It's just, I don't have an essence. I don't have a problem with any of this in its essence. Like, I don't have an issue with Cody winning. Cody's a big star. Like, you need to keep him strong. I get it. I don't have an issue with Penta putting Cody out. But like you said, the exact sequence of these things was the issue.
Mm-hmm. And maybe we're being clouded by the fact that we watch Lucha Underground, but that arm breaker, they got that thing over pretty big on that show. And I feel like they should probably be doing the same thing here, and they don't for whatever reason.
I mean, Penta was like Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was like the biggest star in that company. And like, yeah. I mean, did not like that segment. Let's see here. We had an enhancement match with Jade Cargill and Danny Jordan. This was short. This was quick. It was exactly what it needed to be. Jade is, I think, made. She had her big coming out party with Shaq. Killed Danny Jordan, which she should be. And I mean, she's got a great look. She's got the look of a star. This was fine. This was exactly what it needed to be.
Yeah, squash matches are good. We like them. More, please.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Okay, we had a 10-man tag match with two of my least favorite people and some of my favorite people. We had Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, who I love. We had Bear Country, who I really like. We had Butcher and the Blade, who I really like. And then we also had Matt Hardy and Marco Stunt. And, once again, it's 2021, and Matt Hardy is a big part of this show. And I asked myself why. And someone on the internet says, well, he's very creative. And I'm wondering when we stop excusing creativity when execution is so bad.
It's a fair question. I mean, I'd rather have this big money Matt than like a shitty version of the broken gimmick.
Yeah, yes, 100%. But yes, I agree. But to me, it just comes off like, oh wow, there's an older WWE guy that is in bad shape and can't really do anything.
Yeah, but if it gets Butcher and the Blade on TV more often, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, I love them. They're great.
And if we can get a Butcher and Blade versus Bear Country feud, I'd be totally down for that.
Yes. No, they're great. They could be what Heavy Machinery would have been if WWE never broke them up and, did nothing with them.
Yes. Which begs the question, why do they keep doing that? Like, they break up these tag teams and then they do nothing with the individual guys. It's really weird.
It's great. Okay, so we had an interview segment with Tony Schiavone, Darby Allin, and Sting. I
feel like we get this segment every week.
We do. We get it every week. I feel like I love Sting, but I feel like there was a pitch and they were like, whenever Sting should have access to a time machine, and whenever Sting's not around, all the other characters should be asking, "Where's Sting?" and putting him over. Yeah, this was fine, I guess. Darby's promo was great. Like, I like these, like, I've defended it 3 times, and then people just started cheering because I guess they'll just cheer at words. And Darby Allin's like, no, shut the fuck up. That's terrible. I've had it for 3 months. I defended it 3 times. So I thought that was cool. Lance Archer comes out with Jake Roberts, and Jake Roberts fucking napalms Darby Allin. He says, where's your bun, weenie boy? And I'm like, man, this is the type of stuff that makes me understand why Jake Roberts is the master of psychology.
Not one of Jake's better ones, unfortunately. But
that guy he can just pull you in, Patrick, and no matter what, he can really just make you feel it. So when he says weenie boy, you're just like, oh, fuck.
I mean, I'll take this over his blackjack promo.
Wait, what's his
21,
blackjack?
he's got 2 of those too.
Wait, what?
Oh, have you ever seen his drunken rambling promo from the Legends of Wrestling?
No, I never have.
Oh, it's a doozy, to say the least.
What does he say?
He rambles on and on about playing blackjack, and I think the point he's trying to get across is that he's a cheater, but it just sounds like a drunken rambling. If you know anything about drunk people, being who I am and with my Irish heritage, drunkenness comes part and parcel, so I'm familiar with the lingo. When you start throwing numbers into your speech, it goes even worse, and you make yourself sound even more drunk. And Jake just sounded like a complete lunatic the entire time, and not in a good way.
And then you add Jack Daniels to the mix, and your odds of being coherent go drastically down.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So then we had Team Taz come out, and Brian Cage was like, "Hey, I respect you, Sting." And Ricky Starks was pissed, and Team Taz was all pissed. So we could be getting a Team Taz explosion. Team Taz explodes at WrestleMania 5. Yeah, it was fine. It was the normal, like, I mean, just because Sting like wants to be on every week, we don't have to put him on every week, you know. Like, it's always like he's here and then somebody interrupts him and Sting's like, okay, see you later. Then he shrugs and walks to the back.
Yeah, it's like, and again, this comes from me watching Nitro recently. It's like a lot of Sting's best stuff was him just standing up on the catwalk, not doing anything.
Yeah. So I want to get to the main thing other than the main event that I liked about the show, and that was MJF introducing the Pinnacle, which was his new group. Now, so I loved this promo and I love this group. I do not love the name. I would have liked to see like something like the Upper Class or like Privilege or something like that as the name. I think it's fine, but you know, the explanation of it was great. Having MJF like kind of unleashed and not as Jericho's lackey was pretty great. And this just opens up so many new things. You can get a blood and guts War Games match between the two. It gives the MJF and Jericho match more meaning as a sequel than it had. You can get another Wardlow Hager match. You can get Sammy, Shawn Spears. You get PNP and FTR. You get a lot of big matches out of this, which is good. I thought this advanced the story really well. And for a guy who's never won a title, MJF has been kept remarkably strong through his run in AEW and like continues to be like their top like homegrown talent.
And as he pointed out, he's got 25 years left in the tank, buddy.
Oh yeah. And hairline. And I mean, you know, like make fun of Jericho all you can, MJF, but I've seen your hairline future and I don't think that thing lasts very long.
God, now I'm picturing he's going to be losing a hair match at some point, right? Because at some point you just kind of lose. You accept defeat. You just shave it all off.
Yeah, I don't think it's in terrible shape, but like, you know, he just seems like a guy that is going to have male pattern baldness sooner rather than later.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you like this segment?
Oh, I loved it. It was fantastic. It's one of MJF's, by his standards, one of his better promos, which says a lot.
Yeah.
Because he's consistently fantastic on the mic.
We also had Eddie Kingston and Moxley against the Good Brothers. There was no 69ing of Don and Kenny this week, but we did have Kenny coming out, sitting on the chair, and Kingston saving Moxley, and then they just beat the shit out of Moxley, or Kingston rather. I thought this was fine. I thought the post-match stuff was a lot better. The will they, won't they with the Bucks is interesting. Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see where we go. I imagine it's going to be Bucks and Good Brothers, right?
You would think so at some point. I think did I read correctly that the Good Brothers lost the Impact Tag Team titles?
Yes, I think to Finn Juice.
Okay, because I was kind of hoping we would get champion versus champion there. Not that it matters all that much with Impact titles, but I just like a good
Yeah.
champion versus champion match. But yeah, no, I think that's in the future, and yeah, I think there's some interesting story possibilities here, and I'm especially looking forward to Kenny winning the Impact World title and starting his kind of, as we've put it before, his Infinity Gauntlets collection. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that'll be fun if they can actually pull it off.
Yeah.
So, why don't we, before we go here, why don't we do a little WrestleMania rewind? For those of you who haven't seen this before, we've done it every year since, I want to say like 05 or 06, where
Seems
we
like
we just chat about WrestleMania's gone by, and through our random scroll-meter, which is just us scrolling through the Wikipedia page and picking one, and then we chat about it and go off on old school wrestling rants. So we are right now going to be, here we go, Patrick. It is WrestleMania 8 at the Hoosier Dome, Indianapolis.
This was my first WrestleMania that I watched live on pay-per-view.
Really?
Yep. I remember I had T-ball practice that day, and I told my dad we have to get home early because WrestleMania is coming on this afternoon.
It went to the heartland of America. So when you're watching this, who were you most into?
At this point, I was still a big Hogan fan at this point. I was 7 years old. Yeah, it would have been 7. So I was still big into Hogan, and the idea of him retiring was like foreign to me. So I was like, well, if this is his last match, I got to see it. I was really big into Randy Savage and Ric Flair, and I really wanted to see that match. And I was just starting to get on the Bret Hart train.
Is it a few weeks? Because he stops him from hitting Elizabeth, right?
That was at Saturday night's main event, which I believe was about a month before WrestleMania. So yeah, it was. We weren't used to having Undertaker as the face, but I was loving every second of it.
Yeah. So this is actually a really good show. I feel like. I mean Warrior coming back as a surprise is great, but the final match isn't super good. But like.
No.
You got like a lot of good stuff here. I mean, Piper and Brett is a great match. Let's go through this. Let's go through actually this card here. This is really, I would say, the transition year between rock and wrestling. If anyone is listening and calls it the Golden Age, it's not the Golden Age. The Golden Age is in the 1950s. The 80s era of wrestling is called the Rock and Wrestling era.
For the WWF.
For the WWE, yes. Yeah. This is the transition mania between Rock and Wrestling and New Generation. Am I right?
I would say that's very accurate, actually, when you look at who went over on the show. Shawn, Taker, Brett,
Owen, Tatanka.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
Anyone who's not in like a main event match, like Savage and Hogan, of course, but like the rest of them were all new gen guys going over non-new gen guys. We had Shawn Michaels and Tito Santana in the opening match, which I think shows you how much faith Vince had even back then in Shawn, because the opening match at Mania is a super important match. It's probably, I would say, the second most important match. Am I wrong on that?
It's a very important match because you do want to start off hot. And on WrestleMania, everything's kind of heightened. So, and traditionally, even in the early Manias, they would start off with like something that you expect to be action-packed and something with the quote-unquote lighter guys that can do a little bit have a little bit more pep in the step and have a little bit more action. So Sean was perfect for that spot. And keep in mind, he had opened WrestleMania 7 the year before. So not a foreign spot for him either.
Yeah. This match is good. It's Sean's first pay-per-view singles match since becoming the Heartbreak Kid. And I mean, this was a fast year for him because the original plan when SummerSlam 92 was in DC, it was going to be at the it's like the RCA Stadium. No, not the RCA Stadium. I don't know what it was going to be at the DC one. I can't remember what it's.
RFK. The US Air Arena?
No. It's RFK Stadium was what it was going to be.
Oh, okay.
He was going to go over Brett in a ladder match for the Intercontinental title. So Sean was at the next pay-per-view scheduled to get the Intercontinental title. Obviously, he got it at the October Saturday night's main event, but this was a big start of a big year for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And he was still early into this heel run. I talked about it with Undertaker. We weren't used to seeing as a face yet. With Sean, we were still kind of like feeling the waters or feeling our way through the forest with him as a heel. And I remember I was at a house show like about a month before WrestleMania, and he didn't even have the Sexy Boy theme yet. He had
Rhapsody in Blue, right?
Yeah. And he wrestled Jim Powers on that show. I remember that. And here he is. He's got Sherry with him, and I think this may have been the debut of the Sexy Boy theme. I'm not sure. But, it was starting to come together pretty nicely. And, of course, Bobby Heenan added a lot to the act with the whole Shawn Michaels has left the building, which made his opening matches even better.
Yeah.
Because it gave an excuse for that joke later in the show.
Yeah. As a semi-Shawn Michaels historian, building up to that Mania, he was wrestling and beating in house shows either Jim Powers or Jimmy Snuka.
Yeah, that sounds right.
All right, next we had another new gen star. We had Undertaker taking on Jake Roberts. This match was short. It was 6 minutes because right before this match, I believe Jake gave his notice, I think, and then put over Undertaker in very, very short amount of time before going to WCW.
Which made Undertaker look even better. And I remember watching this as a kid. I grew up with the DDT equaling death. Nobody got up from the DDT. Undertaker sat up from two, and still came back and won with the tombstone on the outside. And it was like, oh my God, Undertaker's like the man. And it's like, that's how you put somebody over and you help make a star.
Well, this is WrestleMania 31 is what this is. This is the correct way to do it. The Undertaker is Bray Wyatt and Jake Roberts is The Undertaker. And in 92, they did it correctly. They said, hey, Jake Roberts is much older and The Undertaker is like 25 or 4 or something ridiculous. Let's have him go over and we'll sell him and strap the rocket to him. And guess what? It paid off. Paid off so well that in 2015, The Undertaker was wrestling Bray Wyatt. And they're like, you know what? Even though this guy's 50 years old and this other guy's like 27, let's have the old guy go over because we still got to milk this shit for all it's worth, as opposed to actually making stars to the point where then we get to 2021 and we have to put Bobby Lashley in the main event. So, yeah, this is the correct thing to do, by the way. This whole pay-per-view is pretty much the correct thing to do. Then we had the Intercontinental title match. Roddy Piper defending against Bret Hart. Piper won it from the Mountie at – did he win it?
Royal Rumble.
Yeah. And, Bret had lost it, and, this was kind of this was a babyface match, which kind of told the story of Bret, being that noble, do-gooder babyface that he would have up until his heel turn at Mania 13. But this was, for the longest time, this was up there with some of the top Intercontinental title matches of all time. It was up there with, I'm not saying it was better than or anything, but people would mention this in the same breath as Steamboat and Savage, of Michaels and Razor. This was always widely regarded as a great match.
Yeah, and it's still to this day one of my personal favorites because I went into the match. Again, your nostalgia adds a lot to this as well, but I went into this match, I was a huge Roddy Piper fan, and he was my guy. And Bret, I liked him, but Piper was my guy. But then Piper kind of plays the heel in this match, And as a kid, I completely went along with it. I was like, you know what? Fuck Piper. I'm rooting for Brett now because Piper's being a dick. Or whatever the 7-year-old equivalent of that type of verbiage is. And I really enjoyed it. I thought the match was great. I thought it helped elevate Brett significantly, more so than the match he had with Perfect the year before. Because I think, that match was fantastic. I think getting a win over Piper, which was rare, and having to do it the way he did, coming through as the underdog with that great finish, that kick roll up out of the sleeper hold, which was very creative.
Which he utilized again at Survivor Series 96.
Yes, he did. And again, it's a great finish. And he did it. He was bleeding. He was busted open, bleeding, and it was just a perfect underdog babyface comeback. And I was an even bigger Bret Hart fan after that day.
Yeah. Then we had an 8-man tag match, which, Patrick, I do not remember any of this, but it's Bossman Virgil, Slaughter, Duggan against the Nasty Boys, Repo Man, and Mountie. And this is kind of like these are guys who have been a big deal in the past, and we have no idea what to do with them. Sergeant Slaughter was the world champion 1 year ago. Mm-hmm. Virgil, he had split for $1 Million Man, so he was, was that WrestleMania 7 where they wrestled?
They wrestled at Mania 7 and SummerSlam 91.
Yeah. So he was in a big feud then. Bossman was Bossman. And, Duggan's always around. I remember nothing about this thing.
When you line it up that way, it's kind of amazing because Bossman and Duggan were always at that, or at least at that time, were two very, very over baby faces. Say what you will about Duggan being limited, but fine, I guess. But the thing I remember most about this match is former Family Feud host Ray Combs doing the intro for the match, and he basically roasted the heels. That's the thing I remember the most.
This is basically the 1992 equivalent of a Money in the Bank ladder match.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly.
Except you don't have to give a world title shot to somebody at the end of it.
No. And, they don't have to bump as much so they're not, dying.
We followed that up with Macho Man against Ric Flair for the WWF title. Savage had Elizabeth. Flair had his executive consultant, yep. Mr. Perfect. I believe Heenan was I don't know if he was managing Flair, but he was super pro Flair. And the storyline, of course, was that Flair had been with Elizabeth before Savage had, and he doctored these photos, and they were in WWF magazine and everything. Patrick, I saw this match. You saw it live. I saw it, I think, in 5 years later, 97 or something. I rented the video. This came off as such a big-time match to me. The size of the Hoosier Dome, the intensity of the match. I thought the match itself was great. They just told a fantastic story. I thought this match was, great. And, I don't know, at the time, I was seeing old broken knee Randy Savage in 97, 98. And this showed me, hey, this is Randy Savage when he can go. And it kind of opened my eyes to Randy Savage, as silly as that may sound.
Yeah, that happens. It's kind of I've had to explain to people all the time with Andre. I think most people our age and even a little older, when they think of Andre, they think of end of his career Andre, where he could barely move. I'm no. Andre could do stuff. I've seen him throw drop kicks and shit. So it was just, we only saw, a lot of people our age only saw him at the end of his career. So depending on when you see some of these guys, that's kind of your initial impression. And, but I was a full-on Randy Savage mark at this point, so I got to see this, experience this beautiful match. Very dramatic, well-told story, very exciting. This is one of those matches where all the outside shenanigans were perfect and everything really enhanced the match and the drama rather than took away from it. And there was Miss Elizabeth. When she came out, you didn't know what she was going to do because they had set up the whole angle and everything. And I thought all of that came off beautifully. Randy's win felt like a big deal. And my only disappointments with this match have nothing to do with the match itself. But one is the way that historians and people looking back on the show kind of look back on this match as a mistake because they say it should have been
Hogan. Because of Flair Hogan, yeah.
So this match kind of gets swept under the rug. It's like, oh, that was a misstep. And I'm like, but it was like, I've even heard Flair say, it's like, well, it should have been me and Hogan that year, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, you were in there with Randy Savage in a stadium and you tore the house down. So what's the problem? You know, like, I don't know. And maybe it's because I saw the match 9,000 times in WCW and the idea of Hogan and Flair at Mania just had no appeal for me.
Yeah.
But, I thought this match was outstanding and great. The other problem is that this is probably the first case in WrestleMania history where I felt like maybe these guys should have closed. And I know they wanted to save the Warrior surprise for the end, so at least there's a justification for it. But it really felt like this should have been the main event, especially with the time.
Oh, I got another reason that it closed, but we all know that.
Oh, sure. We know why, brother.
So then Tatanka defeated Rick Martel in like a nothing match. I think Tatanka was still undefeated here. I think he would be undefeated until
93, Ludwig Borga.
Borga beat him and Jannetty, and Jannetty wasn't undefeated. I just remember him beating Marty Jannetty on like a Superstars or something. I don't know.
I think it was SummerSlam.
You're right. It might have been SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Borga could have been the world champion. Can you believe that?
We were this close to getting it. It was supposed to be him and Luger at Mania 10, which sounds insane now, but at the time, it's like they were pushing the guy.
Also, he was like a Nazi.
A Finnish Nazi.
Yeah.
Which is weird. It's like, wait, are we at war with Finland? I didn't know this.
Yeah, Jesus. We had Natural Disasters defeating Money Inc. By countout, so they didn't win the titles. They would get them eventually, so we would still get that sweet Natural Disasters Beverly Brothers match at SummerSlam 92, which we were all hoping for.
This was weird. This match was really weird because a lot of the developments came from behind the scenes, and they had to work around a few things because the Road Warriors were having some issues. It was supposed to be, I believe, Natural Disasters versus Legion of Doom in a rematch from Royal Rumble 92, but Hawk was having personal issues and there were some problems going on, so they kind of rushed a Natural Disasters face turn and put the belts on DiBiase and Irwin just out of nowhere.
Yep.
And so you get this kind of cold match where it's like we got this team that have been heels for months, but now they're faces, and you've got this new team that we don't know anything about them other than we know Ted DiBiase and IRS. So this thing was kind of like a poor patch job.
Yeah. That's funny. Okay, so then we had the main event. We had Hogan and Sid Justice, which of course ends in a DQ, which
that was botched.
No, it was no. Well, it was botched because he wasn't supposed to kick out of the leg drop.
Right, Papa Shango was supposed to come out earlier and he missed his cue. So it was
but it was still supposed to be a DQ though. That's my issue.
Yeah. But I'm just saying they blew the ending. What they had planned for the ending, they blew it.
Yeah. That sucks too. But why were you gonna end your biggest show of the year on a DQ?
Because it was the perfect storm of, well, it's Hogan, and we can't have him lose, but he's going to be going away. So we can't have him beat Sid because we want to keep Sid around, who ultimately Sid got let go almost immediately.
I know.
So then maybe they should have just had Hogan beat him. But it was like this perfect storm of all these factors that just, it's like, fuck it, we'll just do a DQ.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well then don't have it close. I'm just saying. But no, it's Hogan. It has to close.
It's such a garbage ending.
Warrior, here's the statement that doesn't get said, stated a whole lot. Warriors saved the ending of that show.
It's true. Warriors got this insane streak of WrestleManias. Like he's got 6 where he and Hogan have the best match in the show, and 7 where he also has the best match in the show, and then 8 where he's like the biggest part of the show, and then 12 where like most people actually paid to see him. Like it's like the worst wrestler in the world somehow has this like ridiculous streak on WrestleMania. It's insane.
Hey, everybody, a lot of guys, there are certain guys in wrestling that get kind of a negative rap. Warriors won, Luger's won, Scott Steiner's won. I look, was like, hey, you know what? They had their moments, and Warrior, you put him in a big spot. He typically delivered when it counted. Halloween Havoc 98 notwithstanding, but
yeah. All right, we'll do one more of these, right?
Okay, let's do it.
We've got WrestleMania 19, 2003 in Safeco Field in Seattle. The only WrestleMania coming out of the Pacific Northwest, I do believe. We love this show, Patrick, right? This is
it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, this is in the way that WrestleMania 8 was a transition between the new generation and as the rock and wrestling era, the new generation. WrestleMania 19 is quote unquote technically what they call the ruthless aggression era, but has every imaginable superstar on it. You have a show that has the Dudley Boys, The Undertaker, Vince McMahon, Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, Booker T. Like, it's insane the amount of like different arid talents that are on this one show. And like,
apparently they were, and here's another thing, Goldberg would debut the very next night.
Yeah.
And there had been talks that they were going to bring Sting in for the show, and the talks fell through, but they were going to have even more, or could have potentially had more.
Yeah, that would have been. I remember those Sting talks to do a Sting Undertaker match, which will never happen. But unless Dead Man Mark Calloway is all elite. So let's go into this one. We open up with a guy in 2003 who's still being promoted as a star in 2021. That's Matt Hardy.
Version 1.
Yeah, version 1 with his MFer Shannon Moore. Against Rey Mysterio for the WWE Cruiserweight title. This was a short period of time where the WWE Cruiserweight title was a well-promoted thing. This match was short, but a great way to open this show. Matt actually had a really funny, interesting character here and was getting super over, despite the fact that everybody thought Jeff would be the star. And Rey was Rey. This was a great opener.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I believe Jeff had just been released for his.
Yeah, he was doing that. They did like a tag team feud with Michaels and him against Test and Jericho, and then he had like a mini feud with Test, and he was like just out to lunch. And by out to lunch, I mean he was having lunch, and the lunch was painkillers.
Yeah, and I've heard some other things. I've heard crystal meth was part of his diet too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. But no, I agree. This was a ideal opener. It like didn't drag too long. It was quick, fast, action packed, and made the cruiserweight division look good. And was just a nice hot way to start the show.
Yeah. Then we had the Undertaker's match. This was supposed to be a tag team match, which I believe would be the only tag team match that he ever had. In contrast, it's actually the only handicap match he ever had, and the only non-singles match he's ever had at WrestleMania. It was Undertaker beating Big Show and A-Train. He was supposed to team with Nathan Jones.
The Colossus of Bugger Road.
The Colossus of Bugger Road. That's right. But Nathan Jones, by the way, if you don't know who he is, he was a giant, crazy, bald guy who was later in the movie Troy for 4 seconds getting killed by Brad Pitt. And he was like a convict and he was getting out and he was going to kill somebody. I don't know what the fucking character was, but I do know that he was so bad that they're like, you can't wrestle in this match. So Undertaker's just going to wrestle by himself and beat 2 other guys, which he did. Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was one of the bad guys. He was the one that yelled, "I had a baby brother. He was perfect in every way." That was his role.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man. So first of all, you idiot, it's not Bugger Road, it's Boggo Road.
I'm sorry.
I just looked it up and he actually was in that prison. Jesus Christ. Also, he
Great
looked
backstory. It's a great backstory. If he was just even a halfway decent worker, he could have been a big star. But
he's like he's got the most killer look you can ever think of. He's like gigantic and he was in fucking prison, but he was so bad at wrestling that it didn't matter. So,
yep,
yeah.
most
Um,
unfortunate.
yeah. All right. So then we had Trish defeating Victoria and Jazz in a triple threat match, and this is fine. This is kind of the beginning of Trish as the women's division star, and was like
Mm-hmm.
their first, I think, great character in the modern era was Trish Stratus. I mean, Lita too, yeah, but like she never like had the title and defended it like during like I mean, eventually she did, but not during this time period.
Yeah, this was a big breakout for her, and she had, her and Victoria and her and Jazz had been having matches. I think in the latter half of 2002, where Trish was starting to expand and get a lot better, and then this actually felt like a perfect match to have be her crowning moment at WrestleMania, and I thought it came off, pretty well at a time when the Divas matches were seen as kind of filler.
Yeah.
I thought this was actually one of the better matches on the undercard, personally.
Yeah. Next, we had a WWE Tag Team title match. It was a triple threat match between Team Angle, which is Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin, Benoit and Rhino, or what was one team, and Los Guerreros, which was Chavo and Eddie. If there's a stable and like the leader is in a title match, it always helps to have the undercard guys on the show. I say this because there was a tag title match that was on Sunday Night Heat, but not actually on the main show. It was Morley and Lance Storm versus Kane and RVD. And I'm glad they picked this one because having Team Angle on there and having them win kind of gave a little credence to Angle in his main event match. It's similar to what they did with they would do with Evolution the next year, and when they had like Triple H fighting Owen Hart on WrestleMania 14. I don't know. It's just always a thing I like. But this was short, but it was intense. I like this. It was good. It was a good little 8.5-minute match.
Yeah, it was a filler match. It's just an excuse to like get some tag team action on there. So if this were happening today, it would probably be a Money in the Bank ladder match. But
yeah,
it was solid and fun. And Team Angle is one of those like, man, if they were around in any other era, like if you had them in the 80s or if you had them in like the Monday Night War period, they would have been a hell of a team because they'd had a ton of guys to work with. But they were always like, they just
if you had them today, they would be a good team to have.
Oh, absolutely. And it's just that this was the time when WWE was just murdering tag teams left and right and split them. Actually, I think they would split them up the next year for whatever reason. But
yeah, in the draft, because remember Shelton beat Triple H.
And but yeah, no, I thought this was solid.
So next we had the match of the night. It was Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. This is one of the best video packages for everybody who loves that stupid My Way package between Rock and Steve Austin. This one is great, and they've got a real like kung fu vibe to it, where like the master and the student, and they show like Jericho emulating Michaels as he's developing. And there's this great line. He's like, "I didn't want to be the next Shawn Michaels. I wanted to be the first Chris Jericho." So it's got this great. There's a lot of pathos here. It's really interesting. Shawn goes over, which I don't know is the best decision, but Jericho kicks him in the balls at the end of the match, and they kind of continue their feud, and they have another match I think in like July that Jericho actually does win. But this is am I missing anything? It's the best match of the night, right?
Oh, it absolutely is. It was Shawn Michaels' WrestleMania return after being gone since WrestleMania 14, and Jericho's first big like WrestleMania match, and one of the few times he didn't bomb at WrestleMania. Oddly enough,
that's true.
Yeah, but this is one of those matches. It's one of those rare cases where I have a picture in my head of what the match is supposed to look like, and basically what played out was exactly how I pictured it. And I mean that in a good way. It's like they took advantage of every creative opportunity to make this match special, and it worked out beautifully.
Yeah. All right, next we had Triple H defending the world title against Booker T. This is
The most controversial match on this show, especially
absolutely,
in hindsight.
yeah, yeah. Wait, in hindsight,
Well, over time, it's kind of become like this notorious thing that happened at WrestleMania 19. And like, I feel like over time, it's become more, it's kind of
yeah,
snowballed into being like this major black spot on WrestleMania's history, at
yeah,
least in
yeah,
the eyes of a lot of people.
yeah. I mean, it like so. There's this. People are gonna think I'm defending Triple H here, and I'm not. I've got like nothing nice to say about Triple H's like run, but I thought his 2006 to like 2010 was way more damaging than his 2002 to 2005. Like you could make the case that Triple H was like the most over heel and top guy at this point, and like people are like, well, Kane or RVD or Booker T could have been the champion. Like, really? You wanted to put the belt on one of those guys? Like, I mean, RVD maybe in 2001, but by the time he got to Triple H, like he was already like finished. Kane had just like, I mean, it's 2002 Kane. Like, who gives a shit? Like, we're not talking 98 Kane here. And Booker T, like, once again, like, he's already been beaten up in a grocery store by Steve Austin, and like the Rock's beat him in like 3 seconds. Like, really? We're like, they didn't rehab him enough to make him a big deal. So, like, I never had a problem with this. I didn't even have a problem with him like taking forever after the pedigree to pin him, because I'm like, I don't know, it gets the move over. Like, I don't know. I never really had a problem with this. I understand some of the like racial stuff that like Triple H does is like offensive and stuff, but like Triple H is the bad guy. And I know like, oh, the bad guy's supposed to get his come up. It's like, well, he does eventually. He get like Goldberg beats him. Of course, then he beats Goldberg again. And we can have discussions about that. But like, like Triple H is the heel. So he should be saying shitty stuff.
Yeah, and I think wasn't the original plan supposed to be Triple H and Scott Steiner again, but then those
Yes.
matches were just so bad that they said
Yes.
no,
Yes. The
scrap it.
plan the
So
plan was gonna be Steiner and Triple H, and I think Steiner was gonna win here. Because they had the Rumble and then the No Way Out match. And I think actually the Rumble match went so terribly they moved the WrestleMania to No Way Out. So yeah. So
yeah, so Booker kind of got slipped in here because they didn't know what else to do. And I don't know. Going into this WrestleMania, I never thought that Booker would win. Not
yeah.
once. Like it never crossed my mind. I was just like, that was the one match on the show. I was like, well, I know who's going over there, because it just didn't feel like Booker had been built up enough. And that's, I guess you could say that's on the fault of creative more than anything else. It's not Booker's fault. It's not Triple H's fault. It was just the nature of the situation as it was presented.
Yeah. All right, next we had Hogan and McMahon in a street fight. If Hogan loses, he would retire. This was awesome. This was better. Like, I think we say this during a lot of Vince's matches. It was better than it had any right to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was like they had like a fucking overbooked hardcore match, and like Roddy Piper comes out at one point, and there's that great shot that everybody always talks about of Vince coming out with blood over him from under the apron, looking like the fucking devil. This is great.
By the way, Britt Baker kind of had a couple shots herself that kind of mirrored that.
Yeah. And like Vince like leg drops Hogan from a ladder through a table. Like it's bonkers. I don't. You all know me. I don't like Hulk Hogan, but this is a great match. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, great video package. I like the video package.
Yeah, it's a good one. And this was the thing. This was the match they promoted most on like the posters and stuff for this.
Which seems like a mistake, but
I agree.
I mean, it's like you've got Rock and Austin, you've got Lesnar and Angle as like your legitimate kind of MMA match, for lack of a better term, and you've got Shawn making his WrestleMania return, and you go with Hogan and McMahon to promote the show. It's like, all right, it's an odd choice.
So next we get Rock and Austin in the final of their trilogy. I was always a little disappointed with this one because while it's better than their WrestleMania 15 match, it's worse than their WrestleMania 17 match. And I think my expectations were set high for that because like there's a lot of fucking finishers in this thing, and there's a lot of like There's a lot of like stealing finishers and taunts and shit. It's like live action SmackDown versus Raw, the video game, where you have, where you do everything. I like the match, but I couldn't help but feel a little let down by it.
I really enjoy the match for two reasons. And I agree with you that it's not as good as the 17 match, but the 17 match is almost my favorite match in WrestleMania history. So,
Wow.
yeah. So, it's hard to top that, hard to match that. But I love the match because it works as a farewell to Steve Austin, because this ended up being his final match. And the way that they did it at the end with Rock, like basically rock bottoming, giving him the rock bottom multiple times and basically killing him. That was, an appropriate end for Steve to go out on his back. And two, I love Hollywood Rock. It's one of my favorite runs for him. And to see him doing his whole shtick in this match, I thought was great. It was a perfect foil for Steve Austin.
Yeah. Then we had our main event, which is actually 1 minute shorter than the Shawn Michaels Jericho match to be the second longest match of the night. It is Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle. And boy, talk about, like, if this match had been what it should have been, this probably would have been one of the best WrestleManias of all time. But this is kind of what keeps it from being that.
I think you and I are the only ones that say that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the ending just fucks it up so much. We saw with AEW Revolution. I mean, if you fuck up an ending, that's what people remember. And Lesnar goes for the shooting star press, and he almost dies, and then he's unconscious essentially for the rest of the match, and Angle basically has to make him do the finish himself, and it's weird and it's awkward, and people pop, but like it's like that. Oh, okay. It's just like it's not what it should have been.
And I'm going to tell a story about this match. This is the only WrestleMania since I've started watching them from 8 onward. It's the only WrestleMania I did not watch. Actually, I take that back. WrestleMania 22, I didn't watch live the night of. But other than 22, so I figured I will wait until the show's over. If I hear that Kurt died, or if something really bad happened to Kurt, if I hear nothing, then it's okay to check out the replay. And because Kurt was going into this thing needing neck surgery, and the status of this main event was in doubt, and I was so worried for Kurt's health and Lesnar had some question marks on him at the time. He had the situation with Holly, which was more Holly's fault, but I didn't think that Lesnar was the safest opponent to put someone that needs neck surgery up against. So I was legitimately scared for Kurt's health. And go into this match, and then I hear after the show that it's like, oh, actually, Lesnar almost killed himself. And he was the one that looked like he had almost paralyzed himself in this match. It's like, oh, my God, what happened here? And then you watch the match, and it's I know people praise it as one of the best Mania matches ever, and I keep hearing that, and I just don't see it. I just don't. I think it's a strong effort from two guys trying to make the best out of a bad situation, given Kurt's neck. And I think both guys being who they are lends a lot of credibility to the match. But in execution, I don't think it came off as well as they'd hope. And again, the ending really kind of throws a damper on the whole thing because, Brock's out, doesn't know where he is, which hurt the celebration post-show where it's like you could tell Brock's in outer space. He doesn't even know what he's doing. And Kurt just had to pull an ending out of his ass. And he had that kind of deer in the headlights look in his face like, oh, shit, what are we going to do? And it kind of turned into a mess. Fortunately, both guys survived, but other than that, it's like, I don't look back on this one as fondly as a lot of other.
I agree with you. I think the people that really like this match like the idea of this match, and the idea of it is very great. But like you said, it's not, if you watch the actual match, the execution is not where it needs to be to elicit that kind of reaction.
Now, if he had hit the shooting star press, I'd probably be singing a different tune. I'd be like, I wouldn't love the match, but I'd be like, the finish was cool. That was awesome. And the match was pretty good. So, gold star.
Yeah. All right. So that's it for our rewinds this week. We're going to be doing them next week. We'll be chatting all the news in pro wrestling. But ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does appreciate comments, everything. Let us know how you're feeling. But for myself, Eric Lansing, alongside my partner here, Patrick Kelly, we are
signing off.